Chapter 1. The Deception. The binding around my chest was too tight, but I couldn't afford to loosen it. Not now. Not when I was this close. I kept my head down as I shuffled forward in the line of hopefuls, all of us waiting to be assessed by the pack's sentries. My heart hammered against my ribs, or maybe that was just the cloth cutting off my circulation. Either way, I forced myself to breathe slowly through my nose, to keep my hands from trembling. Next! The bark of command made me flinch. I stepped forward, keeping my gaze lowered, my shoulders hunched. I'd practiced this. For 3 weeks I'd studied the way men moved, the way they held space, the way they didn't apologize for existing. It was harder than I'd imagined. The sentry was a wall of muscle with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. He looked me up and down with obvious disdain. Name? Ash. The name came out rougher than my natural voice, scraped from the back of my throat. I'd been practicing that too. Ash Whitmore. Where are you from, Ash Whitmore? Millbrook, the human settlement east of here. The lie tasted bitter. I was from Millbrook, but the rest of what I was about to say was pure fiction. My family died last winter. Fever. I have nowhere else to go. It wasn't entirely untrue. My family was dead, just not from fever and not last winter. But the pack didn't need to know that my father had been killed trying to protect our village from rogues, or that my mother had died of grief 3 months later. They certainly didn't need to know that I'd spent the last year being shuffled between relatives who saw me as a burden, a mouth to feed, a woman who should have been married off by now. The sentry's nostrils flared. For one heart-stopping moment, I thought he could smell the lie on me. Could smell the fear sweat beneath the dirt I'd rubbed into my skin, the rosewater I'd carefully avoided for weeks. "You're scrawny," he said finally. "Weak. We don't need weak wolves in the Shadow Moon pack." "I'm stronger than I look," I said, meeting his eyes for just a moment before looking away. Too much eye contact was a challenge. Too little was submission. I'd learned that from watching the wolves who came to trade in Millbrook, their animal nature barely concealed beneath human skin. "And I'm a fast learner. I'll do whatever work you give me." The sentry snorted. "We'll see." He jerked his thumb toward the right. "That line. Someone will assign you to a trial unit. You've got 1 month to prove you're worth keeping. Most don't make it a week." Relief flooded through me, so sudden and overwhelming that I nearly dropped the act. I managed a stiff nod instead and moved toward the indicated line, my legs unsteady beneath me. I'd done it. I was in. The trial unit turned out to be a group of 7 other newcomers. All young men who looked just as desperate and out of place as I felt. We were taken to a long, low building at the edge of the pack's territory, barely more than a barracks with narrow bunks and thin blankets. The air smelled of sweat and wet dog. "You'll sleep here," said the wolf who'd escorted us, a wiry man with copper hair and amber eyes. "Training starts before dawn. Don't be late. Don't cause trouble. And don't wander off. The pack territory is vast, and not all of it is safe for newcomers." The way he said newcomers made it clear what he really meant. Humans. Or near humans. Those of us who hadn't yet proven we could survive in a world ruled by predators. He left us there, and I quickly claimed a bunk in the corner, as far from the others as possible. I needed privacy. I needed space to maintain the illusion. That first night, I barely slept. Every sound made me tense. The creak of wood, the rustle of blankets, the soft breathing of the others. I kept imagining someone discovering the truth, tearing away my disguise, exposing me before the entire pack. Women weren't allowed in the Shadow Moon pack's warrior ranks. I'd learned that the hard way when I'd first tried to petition for entry using my real name. The elder at the gates had laughed in my face. "Go home, girl. Find a husband." This is no place for females. But I had no home. And I had no intention of finding a husband. What I had was a debt to repay and a burning need to become strong enough that no one could ever hurt me again. The Shadow Moon Pack was the largest, most powerful pack in the Northern Territories. If I could survive here, if I could learn to fight the way they did, maybe then I could find the rogues who'd killed my father. Maybe then I could make them pay. Training began in the dark hours before dawn, just as promised. We ran, miles and miles through forest trails that seemed designed to break us. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I kept pace, refusing to fall behind even when my vision blurred with exhaustion. The wolves who trained us were merciless. They pushed us past what seemed like human limits, and I realized, with growing certainty, that several of my fellow trainees weren't entirely human. They were born wolves, perhaps from smaller packs, seeking to join a more powerful one. They healed faster, ran longer, hit harder. I had to work twice as hard just to keep up. By the third day, 2 of the trainees had quit. By the end of the first week, there were only 4 of us left. And that's when I first saw him. We were in the middle of a combat drill, practicing defensive stances under the critical eye of our instructor, when a ripple of awareness moved through the training grounds. Wolves stopped mid-movement. Conversations died. Even the birds seemed to fall silent. I felt it before I saw him. A pressure in the air, a weight of presence that made my skin prickle and my instincts scream danger. Then he emerged from the tree line, and my breath caught. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a powerful build that spoke of both human strength and animal grace. Dark hair fell to his collar, and even from a distance, I could see the sharp angles of his face, the strong jaw, the eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. Alpha. The word whispered through my mind, primal and certain. "That's Kale's Shadow Moon," breathed one of the trainees beside me, a boy named Marcus who'd been born to the pack but was still working to earn his warrior rank. The Alpha King himself. I watched as Kale moved through the training grounds, his gaze sweeping over the assembled wolves. He moved like liquid shadow, graceful and deadly. Power radiated from him in waves that made my pulse quicken and my mouth go dry. Then, without warning, his head turned. His eyes locked onto mine. The world seemed to tilt. For a moment, just a heartbeat, I forgot to breathe, forgot to maintain my careful posture, forgot everything except the intensity of that golden gaze pinning me in place. His nostrils flared. His expression shifted. A flicker of something, confusion, recognition, crossing his features. Then he was moving, cutting across the training ground with purposeful strides, heading directly toward me. Panic seized my chest. Could he tell? Could he somehow smell through my disguise? But before he reached me, one of his lieutenants intercepted him, speaking urgently in his ear. Kale's jaw tightened. He glanced back at me one more time, his eyes narrowing, before nodding sharply and turning away. I released a breath I hadn't known I was holding. "Lucky," Marcus muttered. "The Alpha doesn't usually visit the trial units. You don't want his attention, not unless you're already proven." But as I watched Kale disappear back into the forest, his broad shoulders tense beneath his dark shirt, I couldn't shake the feeling that luck had nothing to do with it. Something had just shifted. Something had changed. And I had the terrible suspicion that my carefully constructed deception had just become far more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. Chapter 2. The Alpha's Shadow. For 3 days, I felt him watching me. I never saw Kale directly again, but his presence haunted the training grounds like a ghost. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of dark hair disappearing into the trees. Other times I'd feel that prickling awareness at the back of my neck. The sensation of being studied by a predator deciding whether you were prey or something else entirely. It was making me sloppy. Ash! Guard up! The instructor's warning came a second too late. My sparring partner's fist connected with my jaw, snapping my head back. I tasted copper and hit the dirt hard, stars exploding across my vision. Dead, the instructor said flatly. That's the third time this week, Whitmore. Whatever's distracting you, get rid of it or get out of my training ring. I pushed myself up, spitting blood, and nodded. My jaw throbbed and I knew it would bruise. I'd have to be more careful about keeping my face turned away from scrutiny. The other trainees had already moved on to the next drill. I hung back, pressing my sleeve to my split lip, trying to center myself. You drop your left shoulder. The voice came from directly behind me, deep, resonant, and entirely too close. I spun around and immediately regretted it as pain lanced through my jaw. Kale Shadowmoon stood less than 3 feet away, his arms crossed over his chest, his golden eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my stomach flip. Up close, he was even more devastating. Tall enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze, with features that were both beautiful and harsh. High cheekbones, a strong nose, lips that looked like they rarely smiled. A thin scar traced from his temple to his jaw, somehow making him more attractive rather than less. Alpha, I managed, dropping my gaze and hoping he'd interpret my breathlessness as respect rather than panic. Every time you throw a punch, you drop your left shoulder. It telegraphs your move. He circled me slowly, and I felt every hair on my body stand at attention. Your footwork is decent, but you're holding yourself too tight, too controlled. I said nothing, afraid that if I opened my mouth, I'd say something that would give me away. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. Look at me. It wasn't a request. I lifted my eyes, meeting that burning gold gaze, and something electric passed between us. His nostrils flared again, the same way they had during our first encounter, and his brow furrowed slightly. You smell wrong, he said quietly. My blood turned to ice. Sir? Not bad, just different. He stepped closer, and I fought every instinct that screamed at me to retreat. The other trainees smell of sweat and fear and desperation. You smell of those things too, but there's something else. Something I can't place. I forced myself to breathe evenly, to keep my voice level. Maybe it's because I'm human, Alpha. Pure human, I mean. No wolf blood. It was a gamble, but I learned that the best lies were wrapped in truth. I was human. Completely. Utterly human. No shifter blood ran in my veins, which was exactly why the pack laws said I couldn't train as a warrior. Those laws said nothing about men, though. The pack's prejudice had left a loophole, and I'd crawled through it. Kyle studied me for a long moment, and I wondered what he saw. A scrawny boy with a bruised face and desperate eyes? Or something else. Something that called to whatever instinct was making him pursue this. Human, he repeated, and I couldn't read his tone. And you came here alone. No family, no pack, no protection. I have nothing to lose, I said, and that at least was completely true. That makes me dangerous in a different way. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. Show me. Show you what? Your stance. I want to see what my instructors are teaching you. He gestured to the training ring, now empty as the others had moved on to distance running. This was a test. I knew it in my bones, and I had no choice but to take it. I moved into the ring and assumed a defensive position, trying not to think about how closely he was watching, how his gaze seemed to trace every line of my body. The binding around my chest felt suffocating. Attack me, Kale said, stepping into the ring opposite me. Alpha, I couldn't. That's an order, trainee. I swallowed hard and moved. I pulled my punch, of course. Only a fool would actually try to strike the Alpha King, but I put enough force behind it to make it convincing. Kale didn't even blink. He sidestepped with liquid grace, caught my wrist, and used my own momentum to flip me. I hit the ground hard enough to knock the wind from my lungs. "You're pulling your strikes," he said, standing over me. "Why?" "Because you're the Alpha," I gasped, trying to get air back into my lungs. "Wrong answer." He extended a hand. "When someone tells you to attack, you attack. Holding back in training means dying. In real combat. Again." I took his hand, and the moment our skin touched, something jolted through me. A shock of recognition that made my breath catch. His eyes widened fractionally, and I knew he felt it too. He pulled me to my feet but didn't immediately release my hand. We stood there, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the pulse beating in his throat. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice rougher than before. "Ash, Alpha, Ash Whitmore." "No." His grip on my hand tightened almost imperceptibly. "Your real name." My heart stopped. "That is my real name." We stared at each other, and I watched the conflict play across his face. Suspicion, confusion, and something else that looked almost like longing. It was the longing that terrified me most. "Again," he said finally, releasing my hand and stepping back. "And this time, don't hold back." We trained for an hour, just the two of us in that ring while the sun climbed higher and my muscles screamed in protest. Kale was relentless, pushing me harder than any instructor had, correcting my form with hands that were surprisingly gentle even as he drove me to the edge of my endurance. And through it all, I felt that strange pull between us growing stronger, an invisible thread that seemed to tighten every time our eyes met, every time his hands guided my stance into position. By the time he finally called a halt, I was drenched in sweat, my disguise in serious danger of failing, and my mind reeling from the intimacy of the training session. "You have potential," Kale said, his own breathing barely elevated despite the workout. "Raw, undisciplined, but potential nonetheless." He paused, his gaze searching my face. "Report to advanced training tomorrow. I'm moving you up." "Alpha? I haven't completed the trial. I'm the Alpha King. I don't need to explain my decisions to a trainee." But his tone lacked real heat. "Consider it a reward for not boring me." He turned to leave, and I thought I was safe. Then he paused at the edge of the ring and looked back at me over his shoulder. "Fair warning, Ash Whitmore. I protect what's mine, and I'm very good at uncovering secrets." His eyes gleamed in the morning light. "Whatever you're hiding, I will find it." Then he was gone, leaving me standing in the empty ring with my heart in my throat and the terrible certainty that I'd just made the situation infinitely more complicated. The Alpha King suspected something. And worse, some primal part of me wanted him to discover the truth, wanted him to see me, really see me. That want was the most dangerous thing of all. Chapter 3. Moonlight Confessions. Advanced training was hell. The warriors who trained at this level weren't hopefuls trying to earn their place. They were the pack's elite, born wolves with strength and speed that made my human limitations painfully obvious. I was the only trainee in a sea of seasoned fighters, and they didn't bother hiding their contempt. "The Alpha's pet project," I heard one of them mutter as I struggled through my 50th push-up while they barely broke a sweat at twice that number. I gritted my teeth and kept going. I'd asked for this, begged for this chance, in a way. I couldn't afford to fail now. But it wasn't just the physical demands that were breaking me. It was the constant vigilance, the exhausting effort of maintaining my disguise around warriors whose senses were sharp enough to detect a lie in a heartbeat. I couldn't afford to show weakness, couldn't let my guard slip for even a moment. And then there was Kale. He appeared at training sessions without warning, sometimes watching from the shadows, sometimes stepping in to correct technique or demonstrate a maneuver. Every time his attention found me like a compass needle finding north. Every time that inexplicable pull between us grew stronger. It was becoming a problem. "You're distracted again." I spun around, my training sword raised, and found Kale standing at the edge of the practice ring. The other warriors had already left for the evening meal, and somehow I hadn't noticed I was alone. "Just tired, Alpha," I said, lowering my weapon. My arms trembled with exhaustion. "Tired," he repeated, moving closer. "Or troubled?" "Both. Neither." I didn't know anymore. He gestured to the bench at the ring's edge. "Sit, before you fall over." I wanted to refuse, to prove I didn't need rest, but my legs made the decision for me. I collapsed onto the bench with less grace than I would have liked, my breath coming hard. Kyle sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, smell the scent that clung to his skin. Pine and smoke and something wild that made my pulse quicken. He offered me a water skin, and I took it gratefully, trying not to think about the fact that his lips had touched the same opening. "You don't fit here," he said after a moment of silence. My heart lurched. "Alpha, if I've failed to meet expectations..." "That's not what I meant." He turned to look at me, and the intensity in his golden eyes made my mouth go dry. "You don't move like the others. Don't fight like them. There's something refined about your technique. Like you learned to fight in secret, without proper instruction." He was too observant, too intelligent. I needed to deflect. "My father taught me a little," I said, which was true. "Before he died." "Tell me about him." The request caught me off guard. Alphas didn't ask about dead humans. They didn't care about the lives of those beneath their notice. But Kale was watching me with something that looked almost like genuine interest. And before I could stop myself, I was talking. He was a good man, strong, but gentle. He believed that everyone deserved to know how to defend themselves, even... I caught myself before saying, even daughters. Even those the world considered weak. He died protecting people who didn't deserve his sacrifice. "Rogues?" I nodded, the old grief rising sharp and bitter in my throat. "I'm sorry." And he sounded like he meant it. "Losing a father is... difficult." There was something in his voice, a shadow of old pain that made me look at him more closely. "You lost yours, too?" 10 years ago, challenged by a rival alpha who wanted our territory. His jaw tightened. I was 18, not ready. But ready or not, I had to become the Alpha King that day. Without thinking, I reached out and touched his arm. It was a mistake. The contact sent that electric jolt through me again, stronger this time, and I saw his pupils dilate in response. I jerked my hand back. "I'm sorry. That was... Don't." His hand caught mine, holding it gently but firmly against his forearm. "Don't apologize." We sat like that for a heartbeat. 2 heartbeats, the night air growing thick with tension. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. "You're doing it again," he murmured. "Doing what?" "Pulling away. You do it every time we get close. Every time something passes between us." His eyes searched mine. "Why are you so afraid of me, Ash?" I wasn't afraid of him. That was the problem. I was afraid of myself, of the way my carefully constructed walls crumbled whenever he was near. I was afraid of how much I wanted to lean into his touch, to tell him everything, to let him shoulder the weight I'd been carrying alone for so long. "I'm not afraid," I lied. Liar. But his voice was soft, almost affectionate. "Your heart is racing, I can hear it." Damn, supernatural hearing. "Everyone's heart races around the Alpha King," I tried. "Not like this." His hand moved from my captured one to my face, fingers gentle as they traced the line of my jaw where a bruise had finally faded. Not with this recognition, like we've known each other before, like we're meant to. He cut himself off abruptly, his expression shifting to confusion and something that looked almost like fear. Meant to what? I whispered. Nothing. He stood abruptly, putting distance between us. It's nothing. You should eat. Get rest. Training will be harder tomorrow. He was retreating, closing himself off, and I felt the loss of his presence like a physical ache. Kale, I said, using his name without his title for the first time. He froze, his back to me, shoulders tense. Thank you, I continued softly, for seeing potential in me, for talking with me, like I'm a person, not just a trainee. He turned back, and the look on his face stole my breath. Raw, vulnerable, like I'd reached past all his armor to something tender underneath. You've never been just a trainee to me, he said quietly. From the first moment I saw you, I knew. He shook his head. I should go. This is inappropriate. Wait. I stood, taking a step toward him. What did you know, from the first moment? For a long moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, that you would ruin me. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning I didn't fully understand. Before I could respond, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows between the buildings. I stood alone in the practice ring, my hands still tingling where he'd touched it, my heart a confused tangle of fear and longing. Something was happening between us. Something that went beyond attraction, beyond the natural pull between two people. It felt ancient, inevitable, like we were following a script written long before either of us was born. The wolves had stories about such things. Fate. Destiny. Bonds that transcended choice. But those bonds were supposed to be between shifters, not between an alpha king and a human girl pretending to be a boy. I touched my lips, remembering the way he'd looked at me, and whispered into the night, "You'll ruin me too." The moon, nearly full, offered no answer. Chapter 4. The Hunt. I woke to chaos. Shouting voices pulled me from restless sleep, and I stumbled from my bunk to find the barracks in an uproar. Warriors were arming themselves, strapping on weapons with grim efficiency. "What's happening?" I asked Marcus, who was buckling a knife belt around his waist. "Rogues." His face was pale. "They attacked a patrol near the eastern border. 2 of our wolves are missing." My blood ran cold. Rogues. The same creatures who had killed my father, who had torn apart everything I loved. Are we mounting a rescue? I was already reaching for my own weapons, my hands steady despite the fear coursing through me. The Alpha King is leading a hunting party. Marcus hesitated, then added, "You're not required to go. You're still a trainee. And I'm going." He looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my expression must have convinced him otherwise. He nodded once, sharply, and we joined the stream of warriors heading toward the assembly point. The courtyard was organized chaos. Wolves were shifting between human and animal form, their transformations fluid and breathtaking. I'd seen wolves before, but never this many, never this close. The air crackled with predatory energy that made every instinct I had scream to run. Then Kyle emerged from the Alpha's lodge, and every wolf fell silent. He was already half transformed, his eyes glowing that impossible gold, his movements carrying the lethal grace of his animal form even in human shape. Power radiated from him in waves that made my knees weak. His gaze swept the assembled warriors and stopped on me. For a moment, his expression flickered. Surprise, concern, something fierce and possessive that made my breath catch. Then his features hardened into the mask of an alpha going to war. Listen carefully, he said, his voice carrying effortlessly across the courtyard. The rogues have taken 2 of our own. We don't leave pack behind. Ever. His eyes blazed. We track them, we find them, and we remind these mutts why they should fear the Shadow Moon pack. A growl of agreement rose from the assembled wolves. Hunt formation, Kale continued. Experienced warriors on the flanks. Trainees stay in the center, stay sharp, and stay alive. If you can't keep up, fall back. This isn't training. Out there, mistakes are fatal. His eyes found mine again, and I felt the weight of that gaze like a physical touch. A warning. A plea. I lifted my chin and held his stare, letting him see that I wouldn't back down. Something like resignation crossed his features. Then he turned away. Move out. The pack surged forward like a living tide. I ran with them, my human legs straining to keep pace as wolves shifted and bounded ahead. The forest swallowed us, and suddenly we were moving through the trees with purpose and deadly grace. I'd never experienced anything like it. The pack moving as one entity, communication flowing through growls and gestures I barely understood. They were beautiful and terrifying, a glimpse into a world I could never truly belong to. We ran for what felt like hours. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I refused to fall behind. I'd trained for this. I'd fought for the right to be here. Then the scent hit me, blood and something fouler. Decay. Madness. The pack slowed, spreading out into hunting formation. I found myself positioned near the center, flanked by more experienced warriors. Through the trees ahead, I could see movement. Hear voices. Rough, unhinged. Kale raised a hand, and the pack froze. He shifted fully then, his transformation so quick and fluid it stole my breath. One moment a man, the next a massive wolf with midnight fur and those same burning gold eyes. He was magnificent. A howl split the air, the signal to attack. The pack exploded into motion. I'd imagined battle before, but nothing prepared me for the reality. It was brutal, chaotic, wolves and rogues tearing into each other with savage fury. I fought to keep my feet, my training sword feeling pathetically inadequate against creatures that could snap bone with their jaws. A rogue broke through the line, heading straight for me. It was mangy, foam flecking its muzzle, eyes wild with bloodlust. I raised my sword, knowing it wouldn't be enough. The rogue never reached me. Kale hit it from the side like a force of nature, his jaws closing on its throat. The rogue went down, and Kale stood over it, blood on his muzzle, his eyes locked on me with an intensity that transcended words. Mine, those eyes said. Mine to protect. Then he was moving again, a blur of dark fur and lethal grace, and I was left standing there with my heart hammering and the terrible realization that I'd just seen the truth written in his eyes. Whatever was between us, it wasn't just attraction. It was something deeper, more primal. Something that defied every logical thought I'd ever had. The battle ended as quickly as it began. The rogues were dead or scattered, and our captured pack members were found, injured but alive, bound with silver chains that had burned their skin. I watched as Kale shifted back to human form, his body covered in blood and dirt, his chest heaving. He moved among his warriors, checking injuries, offering words of praise or comfort with equal measure. He was a good alpha, a caring one. It made everything so much harder. Ash. I turned to find him standing behind me, close enough that I could see the flecks of amber in his gold eyes, the pulse still racing in his throat. You fought well, he said quietly. But you shouldn't have been here. I had to be. Why? The question was barely a whisper. Why risk yourself like this? You're human. This isn't your fight. It became my fight when rogues killed my father. The words came out harder than I intended. It became my fight when I realized the world is full of monsters, and the only way to survive is to become strong enough to face them. Understanding dawned in his eyes. This is about revenge. This is about making sure I never feel helpless again. He reached out, his hand hovering near my face, and I saw him fighting against the urge to touch me. You're not helpless. You've never been helpless. Don't you see that? I see that I'm surrounded by creatures who could kill me without effort. I see that I'll never be as strong, as fast, as powerful as even the weakest wolf in this pack. My voice cracked despite my best efforts. I see that I don't belong here, but I have nowhere else to go. You belong. He cut himself off, his jaw clenching. We need to talk. Really talk. But not here. Not now. He glanced around at the warriors beginning the trek back home. Tomorrow. Meet me at the north clearing after sunset. Alone. It was dangerous. Every instinct I had told me that being alone with him was the worst possible idea. I'll be there, I said anyway. His eyes closed briefly, and I saw the conflict warring in his expression. When he opened them again, they were filled with a desperate kind of hope. Don't run, he said softly. When you learn the truth, promise me you won't run. What truth? But he was already walking away, leaving me standing in the blood-soaked clearing with questions burning in my throat and the terrible certainty that tomorrow night would change everything. Chapter 5. Truth Under Moonlight. I shouldn't have gone. Every rational thought in my head screamed at me to stay away from the north clearing, to avoid being alone with Kale, to protect the fragile deception I'd worked so hard to maintain. But as the sun set and shadows grew long across the compound, I found myself walking toward the forest anyway. My feet knew the path even if my mind rebelled against it. The north clearing was a sacred space. I'd learned that much from whispered conversations among the warriors. It was where the pack gathered during the full moon, where alphas made their most solemn oaths. The fact that Kale had asked me to meet him here felt significant in ways I couldn't fully grasp. He was already there when I arrived, standing in the center of the clearing with his back to me, his face tilted toward the rising moon. It was nearly full now, just one night away from completeness, and its light turned everything silver and ethereal. You came, he said without turning around. You asked me to. I half expected you to run. He turned then, and the moonlight caught his features, making him look otherworldly, beautiful and dangerous. You should have run. Why? I moved closer despite every warning bell in my head. What are you so afraid I'll learn? Everything. The word came out raw. I'm afraid you'll learn everything, and you'll look at me the way humans look at monsters, with fear, with hatred. I've seen you fight. I've seen your wolf form. I already know you're dangerous. I stopped a few feet away from him. But I've also seen you comfort injured warriors. I've seen you mourn the pack members we lost. Monsters don't do those things. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't understand what I am. What you... He cut himself off, running a hand through his hair in frustration. There are things about our kind that humans don't know. Things we keep secret for good reason. Then tell me. I took another step closer. You asked me here to talk, so talk. For a long moment, he just looked at me, his golden eyes searching my face like he was memorizing every detail. Then he spoke, his voice low and careful. Have you ever heard of fated mates? The question caught me off guard. I've heard stories, folk tales about wolves who are destined for each other. Soul bonds. I frowned. Why? Because it's real. He turned away again, his shoulders tense. When a wolf meets their fated mate, they know. Instantly. It's not a choice, not something that develops over time. It's recognition on the deepest possible level. A bond that transcends logic or reason. My heart was beginning to pound, though I couldn't say why. That sounds intense. It's agony, he said, quietly. When you meet your mate and can't claim them. When every instinct you have screams to protect them, to be near them, but circumstances make it impossible. He turned back to face me. When your mate is hiding something so fundamental that even acknowledging the bond would destroy them. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Kyle, do you know what I smelled the first time I saw you? He moved closer, and I found I couldn't back away. Underneath the dirt and sweat and fear, underneath whatever you've done to mask your scent, I smelled jasmine and rain. The exact scent I've been dreaming about for 5 years. The scent I was beginning to think I'd never actually find. You can't mean... You're my mate, Ash? The name sounded wrong in his mouth, forced. Or whoever you really are. Whatever you're really hiding underneath those bindings and that carefully practiced voice. Ice flooded my veins. He knew. God help me. He knew. I don't know what you're talking about. I tried, but my voice shook. Yes, you do. He was close enough now that I could feel his breath on my face. Did you really think you could fool an alpha's senses? I've known from the beginning that something was wrong. The way you hold yourself. The way you fight. The scent that doesn't quite match what I'm seeing. His hand came up to cup my jaw, gentle despite the tension radiating through him. You're not a boy. You never were. Tears stung my eyes. My carefully constructed world was crumbling, and I had no defense left. Please. I need to hear you say it. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. I need to hear the truth from your lips. Trust me with this. Trust me with you. The dam broke. My name is Rowan, I whispered. Rowan Ashford. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for lying, but they wouldn't let me train as a woman. And I had nowhere else to go. And I needed to become strong enough to... He kissed me. It was desperate and gentle all at once. His lips capturing mine with a hunger that spoke of weeks of restraint finally breaking. I gasped against his mouth, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I forgot how to breathe, forgot how to think, forgot everything except the feel of him against me. When he finally pulled back, we were both trembling. Rowan, he murmured, testing the name like a prayer. Finally, I can finally say your real name. You're not angry? My voice was barely audible. I deceived your entire pack. I broke your laws. My laws are stupid. He rested his forehead against mine. Ancient prejudices that I've been trying to change since I became alpha. But the elders resist, and tradition is... He sighed. I never thought the laws would keep my own mate from me. I still don't understand. I pulled back enough to see his face. How can I be your mate? I'm human. Completely human. Doesn't the bond only work between shifters? That's what we always believed. His hands moved to my shoulders, steady and warm. But the moon. Goddess apparently has a sense of humor. Or maybe she knew exactly what she was doing. His expression grew serious. This complicates things, Rowan. Considerably. Because I'm human? Because you're a woman. He said it gently, but I felt the weight behind the words. The pack laws say unmated females can't train as warriors. And if the elders discover you've been here in disguise... He trailed off, but I could fill in the blanks. They'll expel me. Or worse. They'll try. His eyes flashed gold. But they'll have to go through their alpha first. You're my mate, Rowan. Mine. And I protect what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel safe for the first time in years. What do we do? I asked. For now? We keep your secret. Continue the deception while I work to change the laws. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, hair that had escaped my careful binding. But Rowan? No more lies between us. Not about anything that matters. No more lies, I agreed. He kissed me again, slower this time, savoring. When we parted, his eyes were soft with something that looked like wonder. "My fierce, foolish mate," he murmured. "You've turned my world upside down. Is that a bad thing? Ask me again in a few weeks." But he was smiling, and in that moment, with moonlight streaming down and his arms around me, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we could make this work. I had no idea how wrong I was. Chapter 6. The Elder's Suspicion. The next 3 days were the happiest and most terrifying of my life. Nothing had changed outwardly. I still trained with the Warriors, still maintained my disguise as Ash Whitmore, still endured the suspicious glances and whispered comments about the Alpha's favoritism. But everything felt different now. The world had shifted on its axis. Because now, when Kale corrected my stance during training, his hands lingered a fraction too long. When he watched me from across the courtyard, his eyes held secrets only we shared. And late at night, when the compound fell silent, he would appear at my window like a shadow, and we would steal precious hours together. "Tell me about your childhood," he whispered one night, lying beside me on the narrow bunk. We weren't doing anything improper. He was too careful of my reputation, too aware of the danger. But the intimacy of simply being close was intoxicating. "There's not much to tell." I traced the scar on his jaw with gentle fingers. "I grew up in Millbrook. My father was a hunter. My mother tended her garden. Normal human life." "Nothing about you is normal, Rowan." He caught my hand and pressed a kiss to my palm. "You disguised yourself as a boy and infiltrated a werewolf pack. That's extraordinary. Or insane. Perhaps both." His smile faded. "I worry about you constantly. Every time you train with the Warriors, every time you're in a situation where your secret could be discovered." He pulled me closer. "I can barely stand it. I've been careful." Careful might not be enough. His expression grew troubled. "Elder Thorn has been asking questions about you, about why I moved you to advanced training so quickly." My blood chilled. Elder Thorn was the most traditional of the Pack's council, a wolf who believed humans were beneath notice, and women belonged in domestic roles. If anyone would push for my expulsion, it would be him. "What kind of questions?" "Your background, your family line, whether you have any shifter blood that might explain your abilities." Kale's jaw tightened. He's looking for a reason to challenge my decision, and if he digs too deep, he'll discover the truth. We need to be more careful. No more late-night visits. No more... He gestured between us, and I saw the pain in his eyes. "No more of this. Not until I can change the laws." The thought of losing these stolen moments felt like losing air. "How long will that take?" "Weeks. Maybe months." The council moves slowly, and Thorn will fight me on every change. He cupped my face in his hands. "I know it's not fair. I know I'm asking you to hide, to wait, to deny what we are to each other. But I won't risk you. Not for anything. I can handle Elder Thorn. No." The word came out harsh, alpha command bleeding through. He softened immediately. "I'm sorry. But no. Thorn is dangerous in ways you don't understand. He's been alpha before I was born, and he's never forgiven me for some of the changes I've implemented. If he discovers you're my mate..." Kale's eyes flashed gold. "He'll use you against me. And I won't let that happen." I wanted to argue, to insist I could fight my own battles. But the fear in his voice was real, and I was beginning to understand the impossible position he was in, torn between his duty to the Pack and his bond to me. "Okay," I whispered. "We'll be careful." He kissed me then, soft and desperate, like he was memorizing the taste of me. When he left that night, slipping out my window like smoke, I felt the absence like a physical wound. I should have known it couldn't last. The next morning, Elder Thorn appeared at the training grounds. He was ancient by wolf standards, his hair white as snow but his body still powerful, still dangerous. He moved with the confidence of someone who had survived countless challenges, outlasted numerous alphas. His eyes, pale blue and cold, swept over the assembled warriors before settling on me. "Trainee Whitmore," he called out. "Step forward." My heart stopped, but I forced myself to move with confidence. Around me, the other warriors shifted nervously. No one wanted Elder Thorn's attention. "Yes, Elder?" I kept my voice steady, masculine. He circled me slowly, like a predator assessing prey. "You're an unusual case. Human. No pack blood, no family connections. Yet our alpha has shown you considerable favor." "The alpha recognizes potential when he sees it," I said carefully. "Potential?" Thorn's lip curled. "Or something else?" He leaned closer, and I forced myself not to flinch. "Tell me, boy, what hold do you have over our Alpha King? What leverage makes him overlook your obvious weaknesses?" "I have no leverage, Elder. I'm simply trying to earn my place." "By being weak? By slowing down our warriors?" He gestured to the others. "You don't belong here. You're a distraction, a liability." "That's enough, Thorn." Kale's voice cut across the training ground like a blade. He strode forward, and the sheer power rolling off him made everyone, even Thorn, take a step back. "The boy trains here because I ordered it," Kale continued, his tone brooking no argument. "My judgment. My decision. Unless you're questioning your alpha's authority." The challenge hung in the air, dangerous and explicit. Thorn's eyes narrowed, but he bowed his head in a show of deference that fooled no one. "Of course not, Alpha. I merely express concern for the pack's welfare. Your concern is noted. And dismissed." Kale's gaze swept over the assembled warriors. "Training continues. Now." Everyone scattered to their positions, grateful to escape the tension. But as I moved away, I felt Thorn's eyes on me, calculating and cold. He knew something was wrong. He didn't know what, but he was hunting for answers, and I was his prey. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every shadow seemed threatening, every sound like approaching footsteps. Around midnight, I finally gave up and slipped out of the barracks, needing air, needing space to think. The compound was quiet under the full moon. I walked without destination, my mind spinning with worry. How long before Thorn discovered the truth? How long before everything Kale and I were building came crashing down? "You shouldn't be out alone." I spun to find Marcus emerging from the shadows. My fellow trainee looked troubled, his usual easy demeanor replaced with something heavier. "Couldn't sleep," I said. "Neither could I." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "Ash, I need to tell you something. About Elder Thorn. About what he's planning." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Marcus glanced around nervously. "I overheard him talking to some of the older warriors. He's going to challenge you, tomorrow, in front of the entire pack." He met my eyes. "He's going to demand proof that you're worthy of the Alpha's attention. Combat trial. Full contact." "Against who?" "Against him." Marcus's expression was grim. "And Ash? He's going to kill you. I don't know why he wants you gone so badly, but I've seen that look before. He won't stop until you're dead or driven out." The night suddenly felt colder. "Does the Alpha know?" "I don't know. But even if he does..." Marcus trailed off, and I understood. Even Kale couldn't refuse a formal challenge without appearing weak, without undermining his own authority. I was trapped. And tomorrow, under the eyes of the entire pack, I would have to fight an ancient, powerful wolf while maintaining a disguise that was becoming more fragile by the day. "Thank you for warning me," I said quietly. Marcus gripped my shoulder. "Be careful. Whatever you're hiding, whatever reason the Alpha protects you, it won't matter if you're dead." He left me standing in the moonlight, and I tilted my head back to stare at that full, merciless moon. Tomorrow would change everything. I just didn't know if I'd survive it. Chapter 7. Trial by Combat. Kale came to me before dawn. I was already awake, had been for hours, sitting on the edge of my bunk and trying to quiet the fear thundering through my veins. When his shadow appeared at my window, I nearly wept with relief. "You heard?" I whispered as he climbed inside. "The entire pack has heard by now. Thorn made sure of it." His face was tight with barely contained fury. "He's forcing my hand. If I intervene, I look weak. If I don't..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "I'll fight him." "Rowan, he'll kill you." Kale gripped my shoulders. "He's fought for 70 years. He's survived challenges from alphas twice your size. And you're... human. Weak. I know." I pulled away, pacing the small space. "But what choice do I have? If I refuse the challenge, I'm expelled. If I'm expelled, I lose everything. I lose you." "You think I care about that more than your life?" He caught me, turning me to face him. "Run. Leave tonight. I'll find you after I deal with Thorn, after I change the laws." "And spend months hiding? Years, maybe?" I shook my head. "I didn't come here to run, Kale. I came here to stop being afraid, to stop being helpless." "You're not helpless." "Then let me prove it." I pressed my palm to his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath my touch. "Trust me. The way you asked me to trust you." He closed his eyes, and I saw the war raging behind them. Alpha, mate, duty, love, all of it crashing together in impossible conflict. "There might be a way," he said finally. "A loophole in pack law. But you won't like it." "Tell me." "Combat trials can be postponed if the challenged party requests a champion. Someone to fight in their place." His jaw clenched. "I could fight for you." "Kale, you're the Alpha. You can't..." "I can. But it would require me to publicly claim you as someone under my direct protection. Someone who has value to me beyond a simple trainee." He met my eyes. "It would raise questions, suspicions. Thorn would investigate more thoroughly. So we're trapped either way." "Maybe not." He pulled me close, his lips brushing my temple. "What if we gave them a different explanation? A truth that isn't the whole truth, but enough to justify my protection." "What do you mean?" "What if Ash Whitmore is my younger brother?" I pulled back to stare at him. "Your brother?" "My half-brother, born to my father and a human woman before he became Alpha. Raised in the human world, unaware of his heritage until recently." Kale's mind was clearly racing. "It would. Explain why you're human, why I've shown you favor, why I'd fight to protect you. The pack would accept it. Illegitimate children aren't uncommon, and acknowledging family ties is expected." "But wouldn't they demand proof?" "They'd demand your story. Background. Details about the mother." He cupped my face. Details that I would corroborate as Alpha. My word against Thorn's suspicions. It was risky. A lie built on another lie. More threads to keep straight. But it was also brilliant. "What about the scent?" I asked. "Won't they realize we're mates?" "The mate bond hasn't been consummated. Until it is, the scent isn't obvious to anyone except me." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "To them, you'll smell like pack. Like family. It's close enough to the truth that their noses won't question it." Hope flickered in my chest. You think this could work? I think it's our best chance. He pressed his forehead to mine. But Rowan, this means we have to be even more careful. Brothers, don't. Look at each other the way I look at you. Don't touch the way we touch. I can manage that. I've been hiding who I am for weeks now. Then we do this together. He kissed me softly, a promise and a farewell all at once. Stay strong. No matter what happens in that circle, remember that you're not alone. Not anymore. He left as silently as he'd come, and I sat watching the dawn break, hoping we hadn't just made everything worse. The challenge circle was drawn at noon, a sacred ring in the center of the compound where pack law superseded all else. I stood at the edge, my heart hammering, as the entire pack gathered to watch. Thorn was already in the circle, his expression smug. He knew he'd won. In his mind, I was already broken, already gone. Trainee Whitmore, the elder called out. Do you accept this challenge, or do you forfeit your place in the Shadow Moon pack? I opened my mouth to respond, but Kale's voice cut through the crowd. He doesn't have to answer that. The Alpha King strode forward, and the crowd parted like water before him. Power radiated from every line of his body, and I saw several wolves lower their eyes in automatic submission. Alpha? Thorn's smile didn't waver. Have you come to watch the trial? I've come to claim my right as family. Kale's voice carried across the compound. Ash Whitmore is my brother. My blood. And I invoke the law of kinship to fight in his place. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Thorn's smile finally faltered. Brother? The elder's eyes narrowed. This is the first we're hearing of this. Because I've only recently confirmed it myself. Kale's tone was calm, absolute. Ash is the son of my father and a human woman named Elena Whitmore. Born and raised in the human world, he only learned of his heritage after both his parents died. When he came to me seeking his birthright, I recognized him. The resemblance to our father is undeniable. I held my breath as Kale wove the lie with the confidence of truth. Around us, I saw wolves studying me with new eyes, looking for signs of the Alpha's bloodline in my features. If this is true, Thorn said slowly, why hide it? Why let him train as a common human? Because he asked me to. He wanted to prove himself on his own merit, not through family connection. Kale's eyes were hard. But I won't stand by and watch my brother be slaughtered because of your prejudice, Thorn. If you want him gone, you'll have to go through me. The challenge was explicit. Absolute. Thorn would have to either back down or fight the Alpha King himself. A fight he couldn't win. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then Thorn bowed his head in a gesture that dripped with false respect. Of course, Alpha. I would never challenge your family. But his eyes, when they met mine, promised that this wasn't over. I withdraw my challenge. Relief flooded through me, so intense I nearly staggered. Kyle reached out as if to steady me, then caught himself, the gesture transforming into a brotherly pat on the shoulder. It's done, he said quietly, meant only for my ears. You're safe. But as the crowd dispersed and I saw the way Thorn watched us, the way his mind was clearly working through the pieces, I knew Kale was wrong. This wasn't over. It was only beginning. And the web of lies we'd woven was growing more fragile by the day. That night, as I lay in my bunk pretending to sleep, I heard raised voices from the Alpha's lodge. Kale and the elders, arguing about bloodlines and tradition and the laws I was caught between. I pressed my hand to my chest, feeling my heart beat steady and strong, and wondered how much longer I could keep running from the truth. How much longer before everything fell apart. Chapter 8. The Breaking Point. Being Kale's brother changed everything and nothing. The warriors treated me with more respect now, though whether it was genuine or born of fear, I couldn't tell. I was given better quarters, a small room in the warriors' lodge instead of the communal barracks. Training became more intense, as if they were trying to find the Alpha's bloodline somewhere in my very human capabilities. And Kale. Kale had to pretend I meant nothing more to him than family obligation. It was killing both of us. "You need to eat more," he said one evening, appearing at my door with a tray of food. It was the only time we could be alone now, brief visits justified by brotherly concern. "I'm not hungry." I hadn't been hungry in days. The constant pretense, the weight of maintaining two lies at once, was crushing me. He set the tray down and closed the door, then pulled me into his arms. For just a moment, we could be ourselves. "This is harder than I thought it would be," he murmured into my hair. "Seeing you every day and not being able to touch you. Not being able to—" He pulled back, his eyes burning gold. "I want to tell them all. Consequences be damned." "You can't. We both know that." I traced the line of his jaw. "The pack isn't ready. The laws haven't changed. And if they knew the truth, that their alpha's mate is a human woman who's been deceiving them, they'd have to accept it. I'm the Alpha King. And they'd resent you for it. They'd see me as a weakness they could exploit." I stepped back, wrapping my arms around myself. "Thorn is already watching for any sign that our story isn't true. If we give him ammunition—" Kale's hands clenched into fists. "I hate this. I hate that you have to hide. That we have to hide." "I know." My voice cracked. "But it won't be forever. We just need more time." A knock at the door made us both freeze. We sprang apart, Kale's expression shifting instantly into something appropriate for a brother checking on his sibling. "Enter," I called, my voice rough. Marcus stepped inside, his face grave. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation. The Alpha is needed at the eastern border. Immediately." Kale's entire demeanor changed, Alpha authority snapping into place. "What kind of situation?" "Rogue activity. A large group, maybe 20 or more. They're testing our boundaries." Marcus glanced at me. "Elder Thorn is requesting all warriors report for possible conflict." "All warriors?" Kale's eyes narrowed. "Including trainees?" He was very specific that everyone capable of fighting should be ready to defend pack territory. Marcus's expression told me he understood the implication. Thorn was forcing me into another dangerous situation. "I'm going," I said before Kale could protest. "Rowan?" "Ash," I corrected sharply with Marcus present. "And I have to. If I don't, it looks like you're protecting me, like I'm weak." "You're not." "But they'll think I am." I grabbed my weapons belt. "I can handle myself." Kyle looked like he wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Not without revealing too much. Not without undermining everything we'd built. "Fine," he said tersely. "But you stay in the center formation. Away from the front lines." It wasn't a request. It was an alpha command, and both Marcus and I bowed our heads in acknowledgement. The march to the eastern border was tense. 50 warriors moved through the forest with deadly purpose, and I found myself positioned exactly where Kale had ordered, in the protected center, surrounded by experienced fighters. Thorn appeared at my side, his presence making my skin crawl. "Nervous, young Whitmore?" His voice was soft, almost kind. It made him more dangerous, not less. "Cautious," I replied. "Only fools aren't cautious before battle." Wise words. He studied me with those cold blue eyes. "Tell me, does your brother know?" My heart stopped. "Know what, Elder?" "Whatever secret you're truly hiding." He smiled, showing teeth. "Oh, I believe you have Shadow Moon blood. The Alpha wouldn't lie about something so easily disproven. But there's something else. Something that explains why you smell wrong. Why your heartbeat races whenever the Alpha is Near. Why you move like someone afraid of being seen? I don't know what you mean. Don't you? He leaned closer. I've lived a long time, boy. I've seen every deception, every trick. And I know when someone is playing a part. His voice dropped to a whisper. The question is, what happens when the pack discovers their alpha has been lying to them? When they learn his precious brother is something other? Before I could respond, a howl split the air, the signal for combat. Rogues burst from the tree line, and chaos erupted. I fought to stay in formation, but the rogues were organized in a way I'd never seen before. They weren't just attacking randomly. They were targeting specific warriors, trying to break our lines, trying to separate me from the group. It's a trap, someone shouted, but too late. A massive rogue crashed through the defensive line, heading straight for me. I raised my sword, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. The creature was enormous, its eyes mad with bloodlust, foam dripping from its jaws. Then Kale was there, his wolf form a blur of black fur and lethal grace. He took the rogue down with brutal efficiency, standing over its body with his fangs bared. Another rogue attacked, then another. And I realized with growing horror that they weren't attacking randomly at all. They were targeting Kyle, trying to overwhelm him. And they'd used me as bait. Fall back, Kale's voice echoed in my mind. No, not in my mind. Impossible. Humans couldn't hear pack communication, but I heard him clearly, desperately. Rowan, run! I didn't run. I couldn't. Because as another wave of rogues crashed into our position, I saw Thorn standing at the edge of the battle, watching, not fighting, just watching, and smiling. This wasn't a random rogue attack. This was an assassination attempt. Kale! I screamed his name, human voice cutting through the chaos. It's Thorn. He's... A massive paw caught me across the chest, sending me flying. I hit a tree, hard enough to see stars, felt something crack in my ribs. Pain exploded through me, and when I gasped for air, I felt the bindings around my chest shift, loosen. No, not now. Not like this. I struggled to my feet, one arm wrapped around my ribs, and saw Kale surrounded by 6 rogues. Too many, even for an alpha king. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds, his movements slowing. They were going to kill him. Something inside me broke. Some final barrier I'd been holding on to, some last shred of self-preservation. I didn't care about the secret anymore. Didn't care about the laws or the consequences or what the pack would think. I cared about him. Get away from him! I screamed and ran toward the fight. My sword was gone, lost somewhere in the chaos, so I grabbed a fallen branch, a rock, anything. One of the rogues turned toward me and I saw its eyes widen, saw it scent the air, saw the exact moment it realized what I was. Female! It snarled. The word distorted but recognizable. The alpha's mate. And suddenly every rogue in the clearing stopped attacking Kale and turned toward me instead. The secret I'd fought so hard to keep, the deception I'd maintained through weeks of careful lies, was over. They could smell the truth. I was a woman, and I was Kale's mate. The entire pack was about to learn both. Chapter 9. Unveiled time seemed to slow as the rogues advanced toward me, their eyes gleaming with predatory intent. Behind them, I saw Kale struggling to his feet, blood matting his dark fur, his golden eyes wide with horror. Then he shifted, a transformation so fast it seemed like magic. One moment wolf, the next a man, naked and bleeding and furious. If you touch her, he snarled, his voice carrying the weight of absolute alpha command. I will tear every one of you apart so slowly you'll beg for death. The rogues hesitated. Even in their madness, they recognized an alpha's fury when they heard it. But Thorn stepped forward, finally entering the fray, his expression triumphant. Interesting choice of words, Alpha King. His voice carried across the clearing, ensuring every warrior could hear. Her, not him. He turned to address the assembled pack members, who were now watching with confusion and growing suspicion. It seems our Alpha has been keeping secrets. Thorn! Kale's voice was deadly soft. Did you all hear what your Alpha called his supposed brother? Her. Thorn gestured toward me. Remove your tunic, young Whitmore. Let's see what you're truly hiding beneath those clothes. You have no right, I started, but Kale's hand shot out, stopping me. Don't. His eyes met mine, and I saw resignation there. Grief, but also something else. Determination. It's over, Rowan. No more hiding. The name fell into the silence like a stone into still water. I watched the ripples spread, confusion, shock, then understanding dawning on face after face. Rowan? Marcus stepped forward, his expression betrayed. You're a woman? I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. My ribs throbbed where the rogue had struck me, and I felt blood seeping through my shirt where the bindings had torn. Kale moved to stand beside me, placing himself between me and the pack. Yes, she's a woman. And yes, I knew. From the beginning. The confession sent a shockwave through the assembled wolves. Several warriors shifted unconsciously, aggression rising. You lied to us, said one of the senior warriors, a woman named Sarah. You claimed she was your brother. Pack. Blood. I claimed she had Shadow Moon blood, and I stand by that. Kale's voice was steel. Because she does. Through me. Through the mate bond. If the first revelation had been a stone, this was an avalanche. Wolves erupted in snarls and shouts, the noise overwhelming. Impossible! A human mate? The Alpha King cannot be bound to a human. Thorn's smile was victorious. There, you see? Your Alpha has not only lied to you, he's violated the most sacred of IC, our laws, bringing an unmated female into warrior training, disguising her as male, deceiving the entire pack about her nature. He turned to Kyle. These are crimes that warrant challenge, Alpha King. Perhaps even exile. Try it. Kale's eyes blazed gold. Any wolf who wants to challenge my mate will have to kill me first. And I promise you. His power rolled out in a wave that made every wolf present drop their eyes. I won't die easily. I found my voice finally, though it shook. This isn't his fault. I came here in disguise. I lied. I deceived you all. Kale only protected me after he discovered the truth. Because you're his mate. Thorn made it sound like an accusation. A curse. Yes. I lifted my chin, meeting his cold gaze. I'm his mate. I didn't ask for it. Didn't even believe in it when he told me. But it's true. I turned to face the pack, knowing I was condemning myself with every word but unable to stop. I came here because I had nowhere else to go. Because rogues killed my father, and I needed to be strong enough to survive in a world full of predators. I disguised myself because your laws wouldn't let me train as a woman. And I stayed. My voice cracked. Because I found something here I never expected. Belonging. Purpose. And yes, love. The word hung in the air, stark and undeniable. Kale's hand found mine, his fingers intertwining with mine in front of everyone. The gesture was defiant. A claim. A promise. I won't apologize for protecting my mate, he said quietly. Or for loving her. The moon goddess chose her for me, and I don't question her wisdom even if the rest of you do. The moon goddess doesn't bind alphas to humans. Thorn's composure was cracking. It's unnatural. Wrong. You're compromising the entire pack for your own selfish... Careful, Thorn. Kale's voice dropped to something lethal. You're very close to challenging me directly, and we both know how that would end. Then perhaps I will. Thorn stepped forward. Perhaps it's time for new leadership, an alpha who puts pack before his own desires. The clearing went silent. A direct challenge. The most serious offense in pack law. But before either of them could move, Sarah stepped between them. Enough. The senior warrior's voice was calm but commanding. Elder Thorn, you orchestrated this attack. We all saw you standing aside while rogues targeted our alpha. That's treason. I did no such... You did. Marcus moved to stand beside Sarah. I've been watching you, Elder. Following you. I saw you meeting with the rogue pack 3 days ago. I heard you promise them access to our territory if they killed the alpha during a carefully staged attack. Thorn's expression shifted from righteous anger to trapped fury. You have no proof. I have witnesses. Marcus gestured, and 2 other young warriors stepped forward. And I have this. He pulled out a blood-stained cloth. You're sent all over rogue territory, mingled with theirs. The UI pack erupted again, but this time the anger was directed at Thorn. Wolves closed in, and I saw panic flash across the elder's face. This is conspiracy, he snarled. The Alpha has corrupted you all, turned you against your own traditions. No. Sarah's voice cut through his protests. You did that when you prioritized your prejudices over pack safety, when you tried to murder your Alpha. She turned to Kale. Alpha King, what would you have us do with this traitor? Kale was silent for a long moment, his hand still gripping mine. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with authority and sorrow both. Elder Thorn, you are hereby stripped of your title and exiled from the Shadow Moon Pack. You will leave our territory by sundown. If you return, you will be killed on sight. Thorn's face contorted with rage. This isn't over, boy. You've weakened this pack beyond repair. When the other alphas hear you've taken a human mate, when they learn you've broken every sacred law, they'll tear you apart. Let them try. Kale's arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me against his side. I've faced worse than political disapproval, and I'll face it with my mate beside me. 2 warriors grabbed Thorn, dragging him away as he cursed and struggled. The clearing slowly emptied as wolves returned to the compound, their voices a confused mix of shock and speculation. Eventually, only Kale and I remained, standing in the blood-soaked grass under the fading light. Well, I said shakily, that could have gone worse. He laughed, actual laughter, though edged with hysteria. Could it? I just confessed to lying to my entire pack and claimed a human mate in front of everyone. Half of them probably think I've gone mad. Have you? Completely. He turned me to face him, his hands gentle on my shoulders despite the chaos we'd just survived. But I'd do it again, 1,000 times. For you. I touched his face, my fingers coming away bloody. You're hurt. I'll heal. His eyes searched mine. But Rowan, you need to understand what this means. The other packs, the elders from neighboring territories, they'll use this against me. Against us. I know. You might be in danger. Real danger, beyond anything we've faced so far. I know that too. I stood on my toes and kissed him, tasting blood and salt and desperation. I'm not going anywhere, Kale. You're stuck with me. Good. He rested his forehead against mine. Because I'm not letting you go. Not now. Not ever. Around us, the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Chapter 10. Consequences and Choices. The week following the revelation was unlike anything I could have imagined. Some pack members accepted the truth immediately. Marcus, Sarah, and a handful of younger wolves who seemed more excited than scandalized by their alpha's human mate. Others avoided me entirely, their disapproval written in every turned back and cold shoulder. But the worst were those who watched me, with calculation in their eyes, weighing whether I was a weakness they could exploit or a threat they needed to eliminate. "You don't have to attend," Kale said as I dressed for the pack council meeting. His hands were gentle as he helped me lace up the leather vest. Proper clothing now, made for my actual body instead of the binding and disguise I'd worn for so long. "I can handle the elders alone. We're in this together, remember?" I turned to face him. Besides, if I hide now, it sends the wrong message. That I'm ashamed. That you should be ashamed of me. I could never be ashamed of you. He pulled me close, and I melted into his embrace. This was still new, being able to touch him freely, to kiss him without fear of discovery. "But I am afraid for you. The council will not be kind. Then they'll learn I don't break easily." I kissed him firmly. "Come on, let's face the wolves." The council chamber was a circular room carved from stone, ancient and imposing. 5 elders sat, in judgment, all that remained after Thorn's exile. Their expressions ranged from skeptical to openly hostile as Kale and I entered. Alpha King. Elder Mira, the oldest among them, spoke first. Her voice was dry as autumn leaves. "You've requested this formal council to address the situation." "I have." Kyle's hand rested on the small of my back, a subtle claim. "I understand the pack has concerns about my mate bond. I want to address them directly." "Concerns." Elder Rorik, a barrel-chested man with iron-gray hair, snorted. "You've mated with a human, brought her into sacred pack spaces under false pretenses, lied to your warriors. These aren't concerns, Alpha. These are violations." "Of outdated laws," Kale countered. "Laws I've been attempting to reform since I took leadership. Laws that exist for good reason." Elder Silva leaned forward, her amber eyes sharp. "We are wolves, not humans. Our bloodlines, our strength, our very nature depends on maintaining the sanctity of the pack. What message does it send when our alpha chooses a human over his own kind? It sends the message that the moon goddess's will supersedes mortal prejudice." Kale's voice was calm but unyielding. "I didn't choose Rowan. Fate chose her for me. Would you have me reject the goddess's gift?" The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Questioning an alpha was one thing. Questioning the moon goddess was another entirely. "The bond hasn't been consummated," Elder Mira observed, her eyes on me. "You could still break it. Find a proper mate among the pack." Ice flooded my veins. I'd known this was a possibility, but hearing it spoken aloud made it terrifyingly real. "No." Kale's response was immediate and absolute. "That's not an option. Alpha, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. Rowan is my mate, my choice, my future Luna." His hand tightened on my back. "And I will fight anyone, council elder or otherwise, who tries to separate us." Elder Rorik stood, his body tense with barely contained aggression. "You would tear this pack apart for one woman? Risk war with other territories who will see this as weakness?" "I would do whatever necessary to protect my mate." Kale's eyes flashed gold. "But I don't believe it will come to war. I believe that once the initial shock passes, the pack will adapt. They'll see what I see, that Rowan is strong, brave, and worthy of standing beside me." "She's human." Silva's composure cracked. "She'll age and die while you remain young. She can't shift, can't hunt, can't contribute to the pack the way a true Luna should. What kind of future is that?" The words hit like physical blows. Every fear I'd harbored, every doubt I'd pushed down, laid bare before the council. "That's enough." Kale's voice was dangerous now. "You will not speak about my mate." "No." I stepped forward, out of the protective circle of his arm. Let them speak. Let them voice every objection, every fear. I faced the council directly. "You're right. I'm Human. I will age faster than Kale. I can't shift or hunt. I may never truly understand what it means to be pack. Kale made a noise of protest, but I continued. But I can fight. I've proven that. I can learn your ways, adapt to your culture. I'm not asking to replace what a wolf-born Luna would be. I'm asking for a chance to become something different, something new. My voice steadied. Your alpha didn't choose me because I'm perfect. He chose me because fate decided we belong together. And I'm choosing him, knowing full well what I'm giving up, what challenges we'll face. That should count for something. Silence fell over the chamber. The elders studied me with new eyes, reassessing. You speak well, Elder Mira said finally. But words are cheap. Actions matter. If you truly wish to be Luna of this pack, you must prove yourself. Not as a warrior. We've seen you can fight. But as someone worthy of leading wolves. What would you have me do? I asked. There is an old tradition, she said slowly, glancing at the other elders. Used in the ancient times when alphas took mates from outside the pack. A trial of 3 challenges: mind, body, and spirit. Success would grant you legitimacy in the eyes of all wolves. And failure? Kale's voice was tight. Would require the mate to leave pack territory forever. Mira's gaze was unreadable. It hasn't been invoked in over a century, but these are unprecedented circumstances. My heart hammered. Leave Kale forever? The thought was unbearable. I'll do it, I said before I could second-guess myself. Rowan, no. Kale grabbed my arm. This is manipulative. They're trying to force you out. Maybe. I turned to face him. But if I refuse, they'll always question whether I deserve to be here. Whether you made a mistake choosing me. I cupped his face in my hands. Let me prove myself. Not just to them, to me. His jaw clenched and I saw the conflict warring in his expression, the desire to protect me, battling against respect for my choice. What are the challenges? He asked the council, his tone resigned. Elder Mira stood, moving to a carved chest against the wall. She withdrew an ancient scroll, its edges yellowed with age. The first challenge is wisdom. She must solve a problem that threatens the pack using only her mind. The second is endurance. She must survive 3 days and nights in the deep forest alone, without supplies or shelter. The third is heart. She must prove that her bond to you transcends physical desire, that it is truly written by the goddess. Each challenge sounded more impossible than the last, but I'd come too far to back down now. When do I start? I asked. Tomorrow at dawn. Mira rolled the scroll carefully. An Alpha King? You cannot help her, cannot interfere in any way. She must face these trials alone, or they mean nothing. Kale's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining. She won't be alone, not really. She carries my heart with her. Though words were simple, but they held a promise, a vow. That night, lying in Kale's arms in his private chambers, no longer hiding, no longer pretending, I felt the weight of what was coming. I'm afraid, I whispered into the darkness. So am I. His arms tightened around me. But I believe in you, Rowan. You've survived everything the world has thrown at you. You'll survive this too. And if I don't? If I fail? He was quiet for a long moment. Then I'll follow you, wherever you go, whatever it takes. You're my mate, my choice, and no council, no tradition, no law will keep me from you. I turned in his arms, kissing him deeply, desperately. Tomorrow would bring trials I couldn't imagine. But tonight, I was exactly where I belonged. In the arms of the wolf who had chosen me, just as I had chosen him.